All right, so next up is just kind of a follow-up to a previous question. I want to talk for a minute about how to modify your training, basically how to dial down the volume in your training in case that's something that you need. So there are some circumstances where this could be useful. If you're in a training group executing a training strategy that is generally effective for you, but it just seems to be too much for you to recover from. We had a question come in earlier about a guy who has a new baby at home. It could be changing over to the night shift at work, or any number of different things that kind of causes recovery to get turned down, and so you're not recovering as well. You're accumulating fatigue a bit more. The strategy is generally effective for you, but now all of a sudden it's not very effective. It's not doing what we would hope that it does. So the first thing that I would do in this situation is to try to modify that strategy so that you can recover from it. Now, probably the easiest thing to do to reduce the overall volume, to reduce the overall fatigue of the work, is to just cut down extra sets. So let me give you an example. If you've got a protocol that calls for 2 drop sets, maybe you only do 1, or maybe you skip the drop sets altogether. That would probably be the first place to go in terms of chopping down the training workload. Now, how much do you chop it down? Well, that depends on the situation. Hopefully, you're keeping up with your track inputs. And what you can do is you can look at your long-term fatigue score on track and get an idea on how much do you need to adjust the training volume. If your track is running too hot, then you reduce the volume. If your track is running too cold, then there's usually no benefit to reducing the volume. So let's assume that your track is running too hot, so you would reduce the volume a bit. If your track's just a little bit too hot, then you reduce it a little bit. If it's a lot too hot, then you reduce it a lot. That would be the first thing that I would do, is just to kind of chop down those extra sets. And the reason for that is that way you preserve the overall character and integrity of the training strategy itself. The only thing that you're doing is reducing slightly the magnitude of the stimulus. So that's probably the safest way to go in terms of a reduction. Now, if that's not enough of a reduction, then you're looking at cutting out a day of training probably, and you're going to want to start with that priority 4 workout. So that one will be the first one to go, and then I don't think I've ever had anyone that needs to cut more than 1 workout from the week, but if you did, you would cut the priority 3 workout and so on. So if you are doing any sort of limited work, you want to make sure that you're emphasizing the high priority work. That would be generally the way I would go about chopping down the overall stress of the program. If all of those things aren't working for you, then you definitely need to let me know, and we need to talk about changing your training groups. But I would be surprised if any of that wasn't effective in terms of reducing the stress of the workout to something that you could recover from. Generally, if you've done all that and you're still finding some aspect of it is not working for you in terms of recovery, then it could be just kind of an asymmetrical response. You see this sometimes. I've had lifters who just don't respond well to heavier singles. They get a lot more beat up when they do heavier singles. So we avoid that, and even though the other work is more volume and it could be, physically harder, they recover better from it for whatever reason. And it can go the other way as well. So basically, if you've done all this and it's still not doing the job, then let me know, because at that point, I would say a strategy change, a strategy shift is probably warranted.